Hello, guys. How are you all? Just giving this a second to all log on. Yeah, if you were watching then, I just did a quick clean up. Had a bit of crap in the corner, but no, we're all good. So we have a few of you already on, I see, which is awesome. Thank you very much for joining me. We will just give it a couple of minutes for a few others, hopefully, to pop on by. If you'd like, I'd love for you to pop a little comment in the chat section there. Let me know where you are from. Let me know if you've worked with glue before. I'd like to know if my audience probably knows more than me or not. And yeah, tell me where you're watching from. I do know there's a couple of people that have been and watched my webinars before. So thank you guys for your continued support. And I've also got a few new faces with us today as well. So it would be great if you're new, let me know where you're watching from, and yeah, just say hi. I hope that you can hear me all well. I did do a little mic check before and it was all working, but I am not an IT guru, so you know, sometimes things go wrong. So, well, where do we start? Glue. You guys obviously have joined me today to learn a little bit about this stuff, floral glue. Awesome product, been around for quite a while, but something that I've noticed talking to a lot of different florists in the industry is that not a lot of you have experimented with it. So that's why I wanted to pop together this little webinar, just to give you a few tips if you haven't used it before, and hopefully to encourage you to give it a go, because it is a really cool product, and it is, I think, a game changer when it comes to making corsages. So for a start, how I got into this stuff, obviously, I'd seen it in a, hi Winnie, how are you? I'd seen it in a demonstration many years ago, and then I decided that obviously, you know, I've got to give this new product a go, and I started using it in my shop probably 10 years ago. We used to do a lot of wrist corsages for school formals and graduations, and I figured there had to be a quicker way of making those wrist corsages, because the fully wired ones, although they're beautiful little items, they are very time consuming, and sometimes in your shop you do not have a lot of time. So that's why I started playing with the glue. So just a few things before we get into it. I wanted to show you a couple of my bases. So obviously you can use that cheap old little aluminium base, elastic band. I think you get them from most floristry suppliers. They're great if you like that thing. I think they're cheap, nasty and shitty to wear, but you know, if that's your thing, that's fine. You can actually use them to create glued corsages as well, which is great. You can actually make your own bases. So if any of you, I think I've had a couple of videos up of one I made a while back. I actually did it on a base similar to this. So this is actually made from pipe cleaner. I would highly recommend that you try and get green stuff. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any green stuff last time I needed to buy it. But it's okay because obviously you cover it. But you can make these little pipe cleaner bases. So it's basically 2 pieces of pipe cleaner twisted together, and then I've attached my ribbon on either side. So you'd start building your corsage with that, which is great. But the one I wanted to show you today is one that I use probably 90% of the time, and it's just a simple figure 8. Okay, I create this out of florist wire and paraffin, and I'll show you how to put that together in a little while. But I find that this sort of base is very simple. We're not trying to make a feature out of the bottom of the corsage. Obviously, if you want a pretty base, then you buy a beautiful you know, cuff or bangle or something like that. So I find that these little guys are really awesome. So basically, as I said, I will show you how to pop. It just sits on your arm, and you can just bend it over so it loops underneath. Depending on the size of your arm too, it's really good. If you've only got a little tiny wrist, especially if you're doing them like for school formal, some of those young ladies have very tiny little wrists, so you can actually bend it to however you want. And it sits there with, you know, no problem at all. You don't need any fuss, no big ribbons or tizziness if you don't want. And that's sort of a really good just base for our corsage today. So how do we get to this little figure eight? Well, it's working. I think my internet is a bit shitty today. I do apologise. That's what you get for being up in the jungle in the middle of nowhere. But yeah, so hopefully we can get through this without too much interruption with our internet. Sorry, guys. So yeah, how do we get to this little base? Well, for a start, you need 2 pieces of 18 gauge for wire. I find that the 2 pieces of the 18 gauge gives us a nice strength that will hold that really well to your arm. You need to overlap it. So if I hold that up, so that you've got just a single piece at the tip for a couple of centimeters. And the reason we do that is when we fold it back over, you don't have a really chunky fold when we do a loop. So we'd start with our 2 pieces of 18 gauge wire. We'd parafilm them together, and then we're going to get a piece like this. So I've got my little single ends ready to go. Then what we need to do is just gently shape that into our circle. Oh, jeez, I think I made this one too big. No, that's all right. So depending on the size that you need to make it, and then we're going to parafilm that together so that we've got a really simple little circle. So sorry for you guys that thought you'd get out of parafilming altogether to make this frame. You do need a little bit. But as I said, it's just a really simple frame. It blends in with the foliage that you use in your corsage. And yeah, it's something that's quite subtle and just sort of sits on the arm quite well. I've been able to wear them in the shop all day. They don't fall off. It works really well. Obviously, if you're working with dried product or, you know, lots of whites without that green foliage, if you wanted to make, you know, a decorative one using a coloured tape, yeah, by all means, have a play with it. But I tend to find that, as I said, most of the time, because I love foliage, my corsages tend to have that really gardeny look. So I tend to have a lot of different foliage in them, and the green tape just adds to that. So now we've got our little loop. Simply just a tip when you are making this, try and where you've just taped those couple of pieces together, try and make that at the top of the corsage. So in this bit that we're going to cover up with horticultural material, you don't want that down here. It just gets a bit chunky and looks a bit messy. So as we've done that, give it a quick twist. Oh, I did make this one a bit big. Okay, so now we've got that little H shape. To hold that all together, again, just a little bit more tape, because we want to make sure, as with any of our foundations with our work, that it's nice and strong. You don't want this to pop apart, because obviously then the whole corsage will fall apart, and yeah, you will have a very unhappy customer. Corsage. Obviously, shape it nice and neat. Again, our mechanics, they need to be as neat as possible to the students all the time. And then, as I said, you can just shape that to fit over your arm. Depending on the size, as I said, I made that one a bit fat. You just bend that. So we've got our little frame ready to go. Now, a little tip to help you working with glue and the corsages is obviously this little guy is going to wobble all over the place. 2 hands to work with is much better than one, so you don't want to be holding it. So I find just a rolled up towel. Oh, this camera is really awesome for holding your work. So you can just clip that on there and you can got two hands to do what you need to do. Now, before we start working with this glue, just a few little pointers if you haven't used it before. It's not an instant stick. It's not super glue or anything like that. It does take a couple of seconds to become tacky. So you just have to be careful. If it's not sticking the first time, don't put more glue on it. Just give it another couple of seconds to start to get tacky, and then it will hold it together. A little tip that I was given once when working with the glue, because it is quite runny and it does ooze all over the place, and it can make a lot of mess. So if you have a little vessel, jam jar, vase, something that you can keep it upright, that will stop it running all over your bench and getting out of control. Trust me, you don't want that to happen because it really sucks. So yeah, just a little tip with that. Have everything that you need close at hand. For the one that I'm going to assemble for you guys today, I've got lots and lots of different textures. I like to work with different textures. I think it adds, a little bit of interest. And once we've done this one, I'll show you a couple of examples of some different ones as well, and also give you some ideas on some really quick, easy ones if you've got a lot to do for a particular function. I'm going to flip this camera down a little bit so you can actually see what I'm doing. I hope this works. Here we go. So now you don't have to look at me the whole time. You can just listen to me. How's that? Right. So let's base it up for a start. So I like to always start with a little bit of foliage, just to start giving me a good little base for my flowers. So you can use any sort of foliage you like. I've got this really lovely hibiscus variety growing in my garden, and I really love the shape of the leaf and the glossiness. It's quite a hardy leaf, so it holds up quite well out of water, obviously. But just more your standard stuff, camellia, magnolia, viburnum, different types of fern, anything like that works really, really well as a base. So what I'm going to do for a start is just start to give myself a nice little base for the frame. And I really don't like messy workmanship. So just a quick thing that you can do before you start is actually cover the underside of our little frame. And that just makes sure that your customer, when they pick it up and they put it on, they're seeing lots of lovely foliage and lots of lovely flowers. They don't want to be seeing ugly bits of wire or where you've taped. Okay, so that's just a little tip before we start. The glue, it's just a gentle drizzle of glue. You don't want lots, because it starts to get too much glue, it'll get out of control and you'll make a horrible glue mess. Also, when you're placing the glue, particularly on your flowers, foliage obviously is a lot tougher, but always try and get a little bit over that cut stem. What that does is it seals it off, holds in that moisture, so it works the same as parafilm. So you can see I just glued that first leaf, I let it sit, so that means it's actually going to be ready to pop on my frame. So this is on the underside, and all this is just to cover the underneath bit of my corsage. Just makes that look a little bit nicer for your customer when they go to put it on. Obviously, they're going to flip it upside down to put it on, and they're not going to see any of those ugly bits of wire. So now we'll flip it back over to the correct side, pop it on the towel. That's going to hold it nice and firm for me. And we'll start building our corsage. So again, I like to create a little bit of shape using different foliage, because as I said, I do like foliage. It adds a sort of nice softness. So I'm going to pop just a little drizzle of glue, again, trying to get that cut stem just to help hold in our moisture. little bit. The great thing with these types of corsages, if you have a lot to make for a wedding or an event, you can actually have, like, I've had up to sort of 6 in a row, all on a towel, and you can just build them layer by layer as you go. That's sort of one of the other benefits of this particular over using your wire, because you can actually build them as you go. So I could have 6 corsages here and just basing them all with leaves. Then I'll go back, do my next layer, base them all up with some flowers or some filler. And yeah, it just really is a great time saver. So as I said, it's not an instant stick. You just need to give it a second sometimes. But you can see already now it's holding together. So I've just got very simple little base underneath, very nice and neat. And then I've got a little base of my leaves. Obviously, the base that we create here with our foliage is going to sort of be a bit of an indicator of the shape that we're going to get. So, you know, at this stage, you decide whether you want to do, you know, more of a posy shape, whether you want to do something a little longer, you know, whatever really takes your fancy. So I like to sort of have them a little longer, sort of following up the arm rather than sort of flowing either side. But as I said, that is completely up to you. You experiment with, you know, whatever look it is that you like. So there's my very simple base. So now I need to start thinking about all those layers, and it's the layers that are going to make it interesting, and it's going to give it some depth and excitement. So I like to, if I can find my snips, have just lots of different textures. I've got this really cool fern, which I love the little tips of. It looks really interesting. Again, if you want to have something a little bit more, you know, run-of-the-mill, umbrella fern's really great, leather fern, anything with a bit of texture, nice sort of shape, just to add a little bit of interest. Okay, so as I said, it's just about building up layers. I go through and I usually do sort of one material at a time. With this particular design, I'm sort of going to work in, I don't know, a rough circle, let's say. We'll see where it goes. Depending on what flowers you want to use in your design, obviously, you want to keep it's just smaller varieties. Don't try to go with anything too big. See wrist corsage is sometimes done with like a standard rose, and sometimes I just think they're a little bit too big. You sort of lose that delicate feeling when you have too big a product in them. So I think of lots of small flowers, lots of small material, and just building it up layer by layer. So there you go. Yes, I've created a star, but promise it won't look like that when I'm finished. So just one thing you do need to be very mindful of when you're creating like this, layer by layer, especially if you've got a lot of, as you can see, like I've got a lot of flat material for a start. You don't want it to be too flat. We still need to create that depth within the design. We need to have a little bit of height so that it's not too flat. So you'll be noticing as I'm building up, I'm trying to sort of add a little bit of height by alternating the position of that material. So it adds to the height and lifts it a little bit off the leaves. Okay, now I'm just going to pop in different type of foliage. And you can see I am sort of just, everything's sort of radiating out from a central position. And that means I'm going to sort of have a very dominant central focal area with this particular design. If you were doing something longer, you obviously might sort of just place your material slightly different. I'm actually really not sure where I'm going with this, if I'm completely honest, but we'll see what happens. Okay. So all of these little layers that I've been popping on, they're still quite wet. So I wouldn't pick this up and shake it or anything just yet. But it is definitely still holding, you know, it's holding in place, helping me construct, like nothing's going to fall out as we go. Okay, so one last layer before I pop some flowers on. And this, again, is just to give me a little bit more height because I actually really want to use these lovely little spider orchids. I like that colour. I like that pattern on them. But they are very flat. And I feel if I just put them on there, the whole design is going to be too flat. So I want to increase the size of it, give it a bit of a dome look. You can do this with lots of different things, such as like some really soft fern, like Ming fern or retro fern, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to use a little bit of the old man's beard. Just popped a few little drizzles of glue all over it. We're just going to pop that in there. And that's just going to help just create a little bit of height in that design. You see that there, just for when I start putting in my flowers, so the whole thing doesn't look too flat. Just got to be careful. That's the only thing. Obviously, it's quite the opposite to when you're wiring, because sometimes when you're wiring, you end up with too much height, and then you've got to sort of bend it all back down so that it's not too high. So this is sort of a bit of the opposite. Okay, so I'll give that a little sec to dry a little bit. Okay, so as I said, I want to use these little spider orchids. I've also got, just because I like lots of little textures with these corsages. I think they look much more interesting when you've got lots of little things. So I've actually got little flowers from the pineapple lily. We use these in class. Whoops, that was my window. Let me just fix that up. We used these in class yesterday. So, yeah, I just think they're really sweet, and I like that colour with that little spider orchid. I've got other bits and bobs here. I've just found these little eucalyptus buds when I was walking down to the shack. Might pop a few of them in. I've also got, I don't want to use the Gloriosa flower. I think the colour's not right, but I do love its little buds. They got a really great shape. So I'm going to try and pop some of them in as well. So to start building, oh, and I also have this little tiny succulent, which I think, again, will work well with the colours that I've got. So I'm actually going to pop him in first. He's got quite a bit of a stem on him, a bit of a stump that we don't want because it's going to be sitting up too high for me. So I am just going to trim that out. I'm going to make sure I pop a bit of glue right on that. And because I want him to sit directly upwards, I have just got a little bit of glue around those petals that are going to touch the base of my design. So where do we want to put him? Over here. So just pop him in there. Okay. Just see, it's not quite stuck, but you can sort of see that we're getting that really lovely combination of textures happening there. It's really cool. Okay. Now, let's see if we can get away with one of these spider orchids. Yep, let's do that. Okay. So, again, with our orchids, just pull them off the stem. We don't need too much length. And then their natural stem as well, you can just chop that off. We don't need any of this unless you need it for the height to come out of the design. You actually don't need big long stems. There's nothing to insert wires to, so you can cut things off as flat as possible. So again, I'm going to make sure, because this flower, obviously I don't want to dehydrate, that I've got a dab of glue on that cut end, and then just a little bit on any of the petals that are going to touch. Okay. You get any, so sometimes you get those little spidery bits, just wipe them out. You don't really want them in your design. Let's go this way. So I'm just going to pop him on like that. Now, obviously, there's not a lot of impact with these delicate little flowers. So I find to give these little, little flowers a little bit more impact, if we double them up in what's called a shadowing technique, just gives it a little bit more impact and also adds a little bit of interest to the design. So I'm going to do that with this. Obviously, if you're doing something a little bit more traditional, Singapore orchids work really well as a glued corsage. And I will say that's sort of typically what I use. I just wanted to sort of play with something a little bit different with this webinar. So you can sort of see we're building them up. There are a little pair of them with our succulent on the other side. Actually, I'll tip it up so you can see. So now I've still got quite a lot of area over this side that I need to start building up, make it a little bit interesting and put some really cool product in there. Just a little tip when you are, again, using orchids. It's, again, just a simple step, but it looks so nice. Just making sure that all your throats, so the throat of the orchid is this little bit down here. I don't know if you can see that. This is our throat. All orchids have quite a dominant throat. It stands out. Make sure they're all facing the same direction or radiating out from the same point. Be very precise with how you place them. Otherwise, the whole thing just tends to look a bit higgledy-piggledy and a bit shitty, to be honest. So just take that little bit extra of a step just to make sure that you're looking at those little throats and that you're making those orchids all face, as I said, either in the same direction or maybe you're going to make them all radiate out from the central point. That's fine, but just be very precise with what your intentions are with those little fellas. Okay, so now you can see I'm just going to start adding in little pineapple lily flowers. I'm going to do it as a little grouping in the center. So as I said, there's such a cute little flower. And look, let's be honest, I did start thinking about what we were going to use in the class, in the webinar today, and I don't know. I just didn't want to buy an entire bunch of roses, to be honest. So, you know, I got creative, which is good. So sometimes as florists, we should do that. Try and work with product that you don't normally work with. It's always a lot more fun that way. Okay. Again, as I'm building up, you can see I'm actually pulling them off really, really quite short. So you don't tend to need all of that stem. Again, just making sure that you got that little bit of glue on the edge. Make sure you haven't got too many of those horrible webby bits coming off. Okay, I'm popping that in there. So I actually neglected to say, or I might have and I've forgotten, this glue, you can get that from any of your florist wholesalers. So maybe next time you're in there buying your, you know, paper and bits and bobs, yeah, grab some and just give it a go. It's definitely something worth playing with. All right, so you can see we're sort of slowly building that up there. Got a nice focal area here with my succulent, another one over here with my little spider orchids, but I still need to build up all over this section. So I wonder if I can get the whole thing in there. No, maybe, we'll see. And yes, I can see some of you going, oh my God, this is taking forever. You said it'd be quick. It is quick. I'm talking. I'm being slow. Oh, looks like my internet is dropping out. I hope you guys can hear me. I think I just had a little thing pop up to say that my internet is getting a bit unstable. So I really hope that you are able to see me, and I will speed up a little bit now because I don't want this to drop out. So I have said before, like you got anyone that sort of watched my lives in the past, I do live up in the sticks, and our internet sometimes is a little bit unreliable. So just hopefully we can get through this one. So yeah, as I was saying, I was promised you that this is a quick and easy corsage method. It is. Obviously, I'm really taking my time with this one. You'll be able to, you know, with a bit of practice, you could definitely get this down to, you know, under 10 minutes to wax something like this together for sure. Okay. Again, I'm just going to start keep on adding, English, Deborah, little textures as I go. Okay, now I think let's see how this is going to go. Why don't I try? I'm going to pop on one more spider orchid just because I can. Okay. Another great thing with the floral glue is it's really good for sticking flowers onto wire. So if you're, doing some decorative forms where you're using, nice bits of decorative wire, you can actually directly glue your flowers onto the wire, and it looks really, really quite good, and they actually stay there really well. So you don't have, any worry about things falling off. So there we go. We've created quite an unusual coloured, very neutral toned, something a bit different. As I said, I didn't really want to do something just with roses and orchids today. So yeah, that is a simple little wrist corsage. It goes on the wrist. We'll just squeeze our little frame just so that it sits nicely. Need another hand for that. Okay, maybe I've got to take it off. So yeah, second hand sometimes would be good. There we go. So that just sits on like that. As I said, you don't actually notice, because you've got a lot of that foliage coming over the side of the arm, you don't really notice that green, and it sort of blends. We're not trying to make a statement out of that little holder. It's just to really hold it on. So yeah, you can see this is still by far completely dry. Like that last little orchid, I can still feel a little bit of movement. But, give it another 5 minutes, it would be completely solid and you're not going to lose any flowers. So just looking at the components of something like this with lots and lots of tiny little elements, to wire this is a nightmare. Wiring these little tiny flowers would take forever. So that's why I really love glue. Hi, how are you? Good to see you again. So yeah, I hope you like that. I did want to show you though, using the glue, you can actually then play around with, using nicer bases. So like just different bangles, or if you want to actually use beautiful cuffs, gluing them on is the easiest way to do that. You can't, you can wire it. Some people do, but it is a lot of work to then attach it to the actual cuff or the bangle. So yeah, my poor little, this was grown in my garden and it hasn't liked the wind that picked up today. It's a poor little guy. But you can sort of see how a nice large opened garden rose, nothing too high, a sort of flatter form works really well. A really quick corsage, if you've got to bang out a heap for an event, starting up with your beautiful basing of a combination of foliages, obviously a really nice fern and a nice flat leaf, and just a phalaenopsis orchid bloom. It's done. It's easy. It'll take you no time at all, and you'll end up with a really striking corsage. So that's another way. Oh, I was going to say, if you are using nice bangles or cuffs, obviously the customer might want to use that again. So rather than gluing it all directly onto the cuff, what you can do is actually make yourself a little base. So again, this color is probably not the best, but hey, it's natural. So that's just a little piece of felt. So I just got some felt from the cheap shop, cut it into the shape that I wanted, and that basically just gives me the base that I do glue that on, but it only takes a couple of spots of glue, so it will peel off a lot more easily for the customer if they want to keep that cuff. And then you start building your design on top of that. So that's just a little tip if you want to use, something a little bit more special that they can use, the customer can use later on. I also did this one on, which, I don't even know where I put that now, on that, here. On this, as I said, these ugly little corsage whatever they are. Yeah, so I did one on that just to show you. So when you do it, you can, again, just cover all of that aluminium plate with some, nice material. So you don't actually have to see all of this cheap, yucky metal. So yeah, you can actually cover that up. So then you've just got your little bits of elastic coming out from that. And then you just build up your design on top of that. So basically you just glue your leaves on to this. I do actually, that's what I should tell you, I do actually bend it back because you don't need all those little prongs. They get in the way. So yeah, bend it back so it's nice and flat, and then start building up your leaves on top of that. So yeah, that's just another little one I did. I wanted to see if I can make a corsage with marigold. I was pretty happy with that. It's pretty cute. So yeah, just another way of doing it. And that's been sitting there for, I don't know, about half an hour now. It's tough as. It's not going to fall apart. Yeah, really, really good. Another benefit of these is they're really light. You don't have all that wire sitting there. You don't have any stubby bits. That's something that I always struggle with. I've tried a few different construction methods with the wired ones, and there's still always a couple of ends that you need to deal with. Obviously, this, you can create any shape. It's lightweight. Don't have any of those horrible stubby ends. So I hope you've enjoyed today. I tried not to be too long like last time. So yeah, if you've enjoyed it, yeah, let me know. You are a bit of a quiet crowd, which is fine. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you're keen now to just give it a go. As I said, if you're in the industry and you haven't given it a go, just have a play with it, see what you think. You might actually find that is, the first couple of times you might find it's a bit messy. But once you've used it a few times, it definitely will save you a lot of time, and you'll be able to create some really cool shapes that sometimes with wiring is a lot more difficult. So yeah, if you have enjoyed today, please let me know. Also, if you've got any feedback on, how it went, things that need improving. I'm still trying to work on this format using YouTube. It's probably not the best, but anyway, we'll see how we go. Yeah, any feedback, would love to hear it, I suppose. And yeah, keep an eye out. I'll hopefully do, well, my plan is to do another one in mid-April. So I really want to try and do one a month. At this stage, I'm still sort of figuring out what we're going to be doing on our webinar. Also, for you guys that are in Cairns or Far North Queensland, I do want to try and get together, for a face-to-face something. Running out of time, obviously, because we are heading into wedding season and things are starting to get a bit busy, but that's something in the works as well. So if you are up north, keep an eye out. As I said, I'll pop it in an email and let you know. But yeah, it would be great if we can sort of do something, more casual, face-to-face, find a nice hotel somewhere in Cairns and maybe get together and play with flour. So again, thank you very much for giving me your time today. No worries. So yeah, if you have joined in late, there are a couple I've just noticed that have popped on in the last sort of 15 minutes. That link, you can go in and watch it anytime, I believe. When I've checked back on the last one, it's still all active. So on that same link, you can watch it again at any time. You can even speed me up if you want to get to the good stuff and not mess around. So whatever. But yeah, again, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you're inspired just to, give it a go. As with anything in floristry, we are, excellent. It's pretty cool, hey? I have a feeling I might have worn it last time. I can't remember. But yeah, I wear it a lot, clearly. What was I going to say? Now I've completely lost my train of thought. Now I'm reading comments, which is probably not a good idea. Yes, so I hope I've inspired you to play with some floral glue. As with anything in flowers, it's just about learning new skills all along. New things come out. people come up with different ideas. It's ever evolving thing. You'll never get to a point where you can say, oh, I know it all, you know, I'm a florist. But yeah, keep learning, because you will evolve a lot more as a designer. And I know you guys that are students of mine, or students that have just finished, because there are a few of you there. Yeah, just keep learning. You're going to, you know, come up with lots and lots of tricks, and you'll come up with things that you like to use that maybe other people don't, or, you know, vice versa. So yeah, give the glue a go, make yourself a cute little wrist corsage, and yeah, keep an eye out for my next email. As I said, we will do another one hopefully mid-April. As yet, not sure what we're going to do the webinar on, but I will get there. So again, thank you so, so much for giving me your time, and yeah, have fun and see you next time.